Guys, welcome back here to the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check today's episode out. And guys, today I have got a really good old school bass fishing tip for you guys. It works really good in April and May. This is something that's sort of a forgotten art. I'm going to talk to you about twitching an old rogue on the surface to catch bass this time of year. It is deadly, guys. I'm telling you, deadly this time of year if you get the right conditions. So we're going to go over the whole overview about how to do this in today's video. And also, guys, I will put my this is a shallow rogue we're talking about here. It only runs like 3 feet. I'll put this shallow rogue link and my tackle warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to pick one up. Any type of a silver side, it doesn't matter if it's black silver with orange belly, just black silver, blue silver. You definitely just want some type of a silver side to it. That's good. That's going to be the best deal. And also, guys, quick reminder, we do have my Blaukat Throwback jigs back in stock at Tackle Warehouse. They've been back ordered because everybody's been buying them up lately. But we've got 7 different colors, 3 different sizes, and my hand-tied living rubber Blaukat Throwback jig. So the link will be in my Tackle Warehouse link description if you guys would want to get one of those, a couple of those jigs there. So really appreciate that. Okay, guys, this is a technique I have been using forever. In fact, one of the very first bass I've ever caught in my life is, I talk a lot about wading that little creek called Turkey Creek down by my mom and dad's house when I was a kid. And some of the first bass I ever caught was twitching a little Rapala, like a little 3-inch Rapala floating minnow on the surface, just twitching it and letting it go to the surface. And so I've been catching bass on this forever. And I started using the Rogue and the Rapala, from then even till now. And I have done really good in tournaments. I've made several top 10 tournaments, twitching a rogue on the surface, caught tons of fish. So let's talk a little bit about what you want to do with it. Now, the bait is the key on this. This is a shallow lift rogue here, guys. It doesn't run very deep and it floats up pretty fast. This isn't like a jerk, pause, jerk bait. You're fishing this like a topwater lure. I'm putting it on a spinning rod, usually with like 10-pound test monofilament line, so the thing won't sink. You don't want to use fluorocarbon, but spinning rod with 10-pound mono is what you want on it. And how you want to work this, let me show you guys a little bit about how to work this thing before we get into the areas it works in. What you want to do is you want to throw it out there. I just pretend this is a spinning outfit. I just don't got my spinning rod here. But you want to throw it out there, and when it hits the water, just like jerk it down like that. Just see my rod, just jerk it just very lightly like that, and then let it fall back to the surface. And then jerk it down like that, let it rise back to the surface. That's the whole retrieve to it. So what it does is, when you jerk it, the head of the rogue is just going to go under the water like that, maybe ½ an inch, and then you're going to float back to the surface. And once it floats back to the surface, let it sit there until all the ripples dissipate, and then just twitch it again like that. Let it go to the surface, twitch it, let it float up, twitch it, let it float up. You're not wanting to get the whole bait under the water. You're wanting to get maybe at the very most half of the bait underwater and let it float up. Almost like what it looks like when you fish it like that, and when it's floating high and you don't get it underwater, it looks like a bait fish struggling on the surface. It's on its way out. And that's what's appealing to it. Okay, so the technique and how you work it is pretty simple. Let's talk about where you want to fish it at and the conditions. This is really critical to it. This is a shallow water deal. This is for the bass when they're in April and May, when they're up cruising and they're very shallow. The number one area, there's 2 different scenarios this will work. The number one area is any type of shallow grass. If you've got water visibility of 2 to 4 foot, something like that, and you've got some type of aquatic vegetation that's under the water, twitching that rogue over the top of that shallow aquatic vegetation is deadly. The other situation with it is in a typical man-made lake, is you go back into those areas where you think these fish are spawning or have been spawning. They can be completely done, it doesn't matter. And throw that rogue just right to the bank and just twitch it out away from the bank, maybe 5 or 10 foot, and then reel it in and make another cast. If you have cover, throw it around cover, that's great, but you don't really need it. You just want to go down these areas and just slowly and methodically work this thing and twitch it and let it float the surface. It's not a fast way to fish. Done right, you're going to be fishing at a very slow pace. Now, given that, you got to have the right conditions for this. This is a very conditional bait. The conditions for this bait is when the water, number one, the water temperature needs to be between 60 and 70 degrees, possibly low 70s, but 60 to 70 degrees, number one. The second with it, you've got to have next to no wind. I prefer a glass calm situation. That's the best, or just a bare ripple, not anything that's major, but just something that breaks up a flat surface. But I prefer a glass smooth surface. This is very critical because the glass smooth surface it telegraphs that disturbance. When this bait is on the surface and it's glass smooth, the fish can pick up on it and they can see it from a long way away. So that's why I like a glass smooth situation. And then finally, it's always going to help if you got some type of overcast. You don't necessarily have to have it, but it really helps. You can cast into shade if you don't have it. But if you gave me a perfect situation, it would be a fairly warm spring day, cloudy out, maybe even raining would even be, or misty rain would be better. Calm conditions, water between 60 to 70, and bass in shallow water. When you got that combination, guys, you can catch some freaking good ones on it. I mean, it catches quality fish, and not very many people do it. It's sort of like it's one of those techniques that remind me back when I used to fish with a couple real old dudes. Back when I was in my 20s, I knew a couple of guys that were close to 80 years old, even when I was in my 20s, and I float fished with them a couple times. And this is the type of technique that they would use. They would fish pretty much topwaters all the time, and that's how they fished it. They just let the thing set. And I don't know how many times I've seen them cast like these minnows or a prop bait or something like underneath an overhanging tree, and they'll barely move it and let it set, and that prop bait or that minnow bait, it'd be floating down the creek like that, just real slow, and a bass would come up and nail it while it was just not even moving, just floating down there. So anyway, guys, just a little technique from the past that still works good today. Again, I'll put all that stuff in my description link and hope it helps you guys catch some. We'll talk later.